guy, and I thought, that's beautiful.
That was the human side of him.
Yeah.
I think it helps us humans, helps me at least, the part in the Bible where it says, you know, God, He's experienced everything we've experienced.
Right.
So we can't, you know,
He knows.
it's kind of like telling the guy that's born rich, always been rich. You don't know what it's like to have to work every day and, you know, paycheck to paycheck. And they just kind of look at you and go, no. God knows, you know.
Right.
So that's comforting.
Yes.
Have you been trying to figure God out on your own? I have some good news for you. God's deepest desire for you is to reveal to you who He truly is. There's no prayer that He will answer more quickly than, God, show me who you really are. In fact, He's already answered that prayer by sending His Son. Oh, we're supposed to split session here. Cindy knows what I'm talking about. Understanding who Jesus shows God truly to be is more critical than a trip to the ER. Well, yeah, but if you're bleeding out, ER is kind of important.
Too.
If your belief about God is wrong, then the more devout you are, the more lost you become. I think that's true. A lot of people get lost in the laws, and they lose
Yeah.
the spirit of the law, the spirit of what God said
And
to
things,
us.
because I sometimes do that, things that really we don't need to know. I mean, we don't need to wonder about it.
My favorite thing is Jimmy gets into the aliens sometimes.
Oh,
And he
yeah.
used to before he was saved. You know, really aliens. There's aliens out there. I know there are. And I'm like, well, I don't think so, but I don't care. I think that leads
Yeah.
a lot of people astray. I think sometimes our space program
Yeah.
sends a lot of people astray
Uh-huh.
because their focus is space and not God.
Right. You're doing the scientific instead of the spiritual.
Gallup surveys consistently show 96% of Americans believe that God is real. For most people, whether God exists is not the issue. The real issue is, what kind of God is He? What does Jesus reveal to us about God?
That was those are interesting questions.
Jimmy and I watched something interesting Sunday as I laid staring at the TV. It was actually about hell, but they talked about, I can't remember the pastor's name, I bet Cindy will know it. Sinners in the hands of an angry God. The most famous.
Jonathan Edwards.
There you go. I knew. Well, geez, of course you know that.
I taught that. I had to teach that in American literature.
You know, and so many people, and I think I grew up partly thinking, you know, He's an angry God, and He's just waiting to screw it
Oh,
up.
to get us.
You know.
Right. That was the Puritans that.
And He's
emphasized.
so not an angry God. He's so
Uh-huh.
patient and so loving and so drawing for us to get to know Him.
You know, Christ Fellowship has a 4-week class when people join called The Journey that I'm in a leader. And on the second week, we're to send everybody John Maxwell's 4 Views of God. It's really good. I'll have to send you that. Yeah, it's I think I still have it on my email, but it talks about that one view is that He's an angry God. But this is what John Maxwell's trying to show, that our view of God is, for many people, is just totally off the mark. And so it's the 4 Views of God, which is, it's really well, it doesn't take that long to, it's a video, it's like a, what do you call it? Like one of those Vimeos that you
Oh,
can send.
okay.
So I'll send you that, because I had to send it to all my 8 people around the table as a table leader. It's real well done.
Well,
In a
maybe I
very
can
short time. I wish I had, I should have.
put that on for
If I-
next week or
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
And that's like when some pastors or preachers or whatever get up to and preach that fire and hell and brimstone, they scare people to death.
Yeah.
I mean, they make him look like He's an angry God. You know, like when they start with the fist and the hollering. And the only time I can think of as an angry God is when
Oh, that's the house shaking, isn't
they're either somebody's running something, or they're working on I-95 or something to make my
Oh,
house.
it sounded like the sprinklers or something.
No, I don't have any sprinklers.
Oh.
They were never hooked up to the
Oh.
water. But anyway, the only time I can think of an angry God was when the money changers in the temple, but that's a different kind of anger.
Yeah.
That
The
isn't-
righteous. God
yeah.
has a righteous anger.
Yeah, that
exactly.
isn't like
They
a-
turned it into a den
like,
of thieves.
yeah.
Right, right.
That's a different kind of.
So many people are misguided by all the, I call them guidelines in the Bible, and
Yeah.
they're not to take away our fun. My son used to say that all the time. Your God's no fun. I can't have any fun.
Mhm.
And it's
Yeah,
for
that's
our
it.
own
He wants to
good.
take something away from me. He wants to be like a killjoy.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, like drinking, and me personally, I don't drink at all, but I have nothing
Me neither.
against, you know, people having a drink.
Yeah.
But I tell my son, when you wake up in a closet, how's that working for you?
Or
I'm
when
not talking about Nick.
Are we
Talking about the other one.
Or when it becomes like gluttony, where you hurt your body or others.
Mhm.
Right, you know.
Because they drink wine at the Lord's Supper, but you don't go out and get drunk, and you know, well, it tells you that. Right?
Right.
But how often can we think of just ourselves and our groups that we get together? Connie and I can have so much fun. We look drunk, okay?
But you can have fun without drinking.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to tell people that they used to think, how can you have any fun if you don't drink? I said, I can have a whole lot of fun without drinking. Or even like after Bill died, I was supposed to find somebody to go out and have fun. I said, I have fun with my ladies group. We can have fun. I don't have to have a man to have fun.
Right.
I mean, sometimes it's probably nice, but you don't have to drink to have fun. And it's
Right.
You
stupid.
don't have to destroy your body, destroy
Yeah,
your health, destroy your relationships.
yeah.
Mhm. Right.
So he's really a God that looks out for us. That he's, wow.
I thought this was good. 96% believe that God is real. I don't know if that's true today. I don't know when this book was written, but
Well, you know, I think being out in the work world still, and I come across people that, you know, yeah, there's a God,
right.
but they aren't, I think a lot of them are misled by good people go to heaven,
Mhm.
you know, good people go to hell too. You know, there's only one way, and it's through Jesus Christ.
Right.
And, you know, they think that, okay, I believe in God, I'm going to heaven. It's not that simple.
No.
You know, Satan believes in God and he's not going to heaven. And that just befuddles me, that someone who has actually seen the face of God can reject him. You know, that's just, wow. God is relational. I don't know any story Jesus told that more clearly pictures what God is like than the story of the prodigal son. Oh, I love that one. Because it is familiar to some of us, we miss the shocking nature of Jesus' love. Listen to Philip Yancey's story of the prodigal daughter. I hope it will help us see anew the relational love at the core of Jesus' parable.
We did some of his studies
Oh
with
my.
Philip Yancey.
We've got a whole book going on here. So bear with me, ladies. It's our bedtime story. A young girl grows up on a cherry orchard just north of Traverse City, Michigan. Oh dear, you might be talking about my mother. Her parents, a bit old-fashioned, overreact to her nose ring. Oh, not my mother. The music she listens to, and the short length of her skirt. They ground her a few times, and she sees inside. I hate you, she screams at her father when he knocks on the door of her room after an argument. And that night she acts on a plan she has mentally rehearsed scores of times. She runs away. Because newspapers in Traverse City report in lurid detail about the gangs, the drugs, and the violence in downtown Detroit, she concludes her parents will not look for her there. Yeah. They might look in California or Florida, but not Detroit. On her second day in Detroit, she meets a man who drives the biggest car she's ever seen. He offers her a ride, buys her lunch, arranges for a place for her to stay. He gives her some pills and makes her feel better than she's ever felt before. She was right all along, she decides. Her parents were keeping her from all the fun. The good life continues for a year. The man with the big car, she calls him boss, teaches her a few things that men like. Since she's underage, men pay a premium for her. She lives in a penthouse and orders room service whenever she wants. Occasionally, she thinks about the folks at home, but their lives now seem so boring and provincial, she can hardly believe she grew up there. After a year, dry mouth, sorry,
Okay, you want some water?
if you don't mind.
I'll get you some. You can keep reading. I'll get you some.
After the first year, sallow signs of illness appear, and it amazes her how fast the boss turns mean. These days we can't mess around, he growls, and before she knows it, she's out on the street without a penny. When winter blows in, she finds herself sleeping on metal grates outside the big department stores. Sleeping is the wrong word. A teenage girl in downtown Detroit at night can never relax her guard. Dark bands around her eyes, her cough worsens. One night, as she lies awake listening for footsteps, everything about her life suddenly looks different to her. She no longer feels like a woman of the world. She feels like a little girl, lost in a cold and frightening city. Something jolts a memory, and a single image fills her mind of May in Traverse City, when a million cherry tree blossom at once. With her golden retriever dashing through the rows of blossoming trees, chasing a tennis ball. Cindy, do you want to read for
Sure.
a minute while I
Sure.
catch my...
God, why did I leave, she says to herself, and pain stabs at her heart. My dog back home eats better than I do now. She's sobbing, and she knows in a flash that more than anything else in the world she wants to go home. She calls home 3 times, but only gets the answering machine. The first 2 times she hangs up without leaving a message, but the 3rd time she says, Dad, Mom, it's me. I was wondering about maybe coming home. I'm catching a bus up your way, and I'll get there about midnight tomorrow. If you're not there, well, I guess I'll just stay on the bus until it hits Canada. It takes about 7 hours for the bus to make all the stops between Detroit and Traverse City, and during that time, she realizes the flaws in her plan. What if her parents are out of town and miss the message? Shouldn't she have waited another day or so until she could talk to them? And even if they are home, they probably wrote her off as dead long ago. She should have given them some time to overcome the shock. On the bus, her thoughts bounce back and forth between those worries and the speech she is preparing for her father. Dad, I'm sorry. I know I was wrong. It's not your fault. It's all mine. Dad, can you forgive me? She says the words over and over, her throat tightening even as she rehearses them. When the bus finally rolls into the station, the air brakes hissing, the driver announces in a crackly voice over the microphone, 15 minutes, folks. That's all we have here. 15 minutes to decide the course of her life. She checks herself in a compact mirror, smooths her hair, and licks the lipstick off her teeth. She looks at the tobacco stains on her fingertips and wonders if her parents will notice, if her parents are even there. She walks into the terminal not knowing what to expect. Not one of the 1,000 scenes that have played out in her mind prepares her for what she sees. There, in the bus terminal in Traverse City, Michigan, stands a group of 40 brothers and sisters and great aunts and uncles and cousins and a grandmother and a great-grandmother to boot. They're all wearing goofy party hats and blowing noisemakers, and taped across the wall of the terminal is a computer-generated banner that reads, Welcome Home. One of the crowd of well-wishers steps her dad. She stares out through the tears in her eyes and begins the memorized speech. Dad, I'm sorry, I know, he interrupts her. Hush, child, we've got no time for that. You'll be late for the party. A banquet's waiting for you at home.
That's
That's
like
so
the,
sweet.
yeah, the practice.
That reminds me, Cindy gave me a book a couple of years
That's what it
ago.
reminded me of, that book I gave you, that I just think is the most beautiful book ever.
That
What is it?
book I think of more often than
It's
any.
by a man it's about by a man named Jack Miller, and he had all these children. He was a missionary, but one of them said, I don't want your religion, and just actually went the opposite way, was even married to a man in the mafia, and they just kept loving on her and accepting her unconditionally. It's called Come Back Barbara. And at Westminster, my principal gave it to me. And it's the most beautiful book of the pursuing love that we are to have to the unlovable.
Yeah.
And this girl now became one of the strongest of the Christians and carried on his ministry, but it took years. I mean, he just, and in the chapter, in the book, the first chapter is written by Barbara, the next chapter is written by Jack about what God was, her daddy, what God was teaching each of them through the journey about God's love. It is the most amazing book I've ever
It's
read.
kind of like Christy going to church.
Well, you missed it. I
I think I do, and I could get it, and I'll bring it.
Well, I have it too.
She has
Oh,
a
do you?
copy,
I do.
but I gave it to Janine because of her battle with Christy, and
Didn't know what happened
I
this
just knew
weekend.
it was the right book for you, you know, but it is
Yeah,
the
she
most
wasn't
beautiful
here
book.
when you told me.
I had to cancel on church Sunday morning because I didn't feel good. And Christy had called me the night before to say, you know, we're gonna go to church. Are you gonna go, Mom? And I said, yeah. And well, in the morning I called her up and said I can't go. I just feel terrible. And come to find out, she went to church without me.
Wow.
Her and Steven
Oh,
found
wow.
a church down in Boca.
Wow.
They went to church. She called me, I think it was Monday maybe, and she said, will you come to our church on the 6th, I think it is, or the 5th or whatever?
Fifth
Because
is a Sunday.
5th, you know, they're having a certain thing go on. And we joined a group on Tuesday nights that they'll go to once they move this weekend. You know, so it was like, and that reminds me of the things in the book. You hang in there because her dad, he dropped out a long time ago. Brothers, they dropped out. Everybody else has kind of put themselves on the back burner, and
Yeah.
so I get to enjoy all this by myself.
He's out of California. He created a ministry called Sonship, SONSHIP, and I think he's gone to be with the Lord now. But it's just, we had it at Coral Ridge Presbyterian for a while, and it was, and the man that introduced it to me actually, he just loved Jack Miller, and then I hate to say it, but he died in a terrible accident. My friend that gave me the book.
Oh, I was going to
Yeah.
say Miller.
No, not Jack Miller, but I think of Mike. His name was Mike Proco. He came to Christ through some teenagers that led him to Christ up in Massachusetts in his school. But he was an awesome vice principal.
Yeah.
Yep. Anyway, it says that's the way God loves you, like this. But the picture in this parable of a father turning to his struggling child is very different from the image many of us have of God.
Let's look at some popular ideas about what kind of God lives in heaven, and see what the Bible has to say about the real God. The truth about God. The popular idea is. You have to start the camera again.
Oh, I thought you were coming to the thing.
18 minutes.
Our